Welcome to the Coach V Show, your Hollywood radio show for personal development with expert insights and interviews to help you, me, and we work to be our best and live our best lives. Today on the show, we are featuring the Southeastern University Fire head ball coach on football, Coach Cesar Rivas. Stay tuned because after a word from our sponsor, Coach is going to bring you some real life lessons, success frameworks, and then also behavioral models that led his program to being a champion this year. And then also he becoming the coach of the year for the conference. And now a word from our sponsor.
This year, as we gather for the holidays, it's important to keep our Ohana safe and sound.
Vaccines have been approved for kids like us, ages 5 to 11.
Now we can join our older siblings, family, and friends in being safer.
Stay safe and enjoy the holidays by washing our hands, wearing our masks, and of course, get back!
Welcome to the Coach V Show, your Hollywood radio show for personal development with expert insights and interviews to help you, me, and we work to be our best and live our best lives. Offering for your consideration success frameworks, behavioral models, and life lessons should you find value, that you deploy it all over your life, leadership, and business. Right here on Island City, where the beach meets the streets, here on the Coach V Show, where iron sharpens iron, together we rise. Tonight, I am so excited to have my hermano and my toco, Coach Cesar Rivas. And Coach Rivas is the head football coach currently at Southeastern University, born in Diego, California. Shout out 619. UC Davis graduate in 1999, 22 years of experience in football with 1 year in high school football. In this, his second season as the head coach of the Fire, he has won the 2021, congrats to the team, Sun Conference Championship Coach of the Year honors. He also earned, and then shout out to his DC, who was also he was the assistant coach of the year for the conference as well. He is married with 3 daughters. Coach and his wife, Jen, reside in the Lakeland, Florida. His approach to life, leadership, business, and football and family is a verse that comes from 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Coach V family, welcome to the Coach V Show. Your boy, my hermano, head coach, Cesar Rivas. Coach, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, my brother. How you doing? It's great to be here. Great to be here.
Man, I'm no, coach of the year, Cesar Rivas, but, I'm doing okay out here in California. Coach, let's not hold any suspense for the listening audience and everyone it is that is expecting to really gain some wisdom and take some notes on life, leadership, family, football, faith, all that tonight. Let's just tell your story, Coach. Born in San Diego, California. Take us through that. Born there. Who are your parents? Right. Shout out to mom and pops. I met both of them. One love. You got a sister, married, 3 kids. Tell us where the whole genesis point is for Coach Cesar Rivas.
Well, it started in a little city of Chula Vista, California. Born in San Diego, but I'm right up to the border right there in South Bay, San Diego, right off the Interstate 5. And I know everybody's pretty affiliated with that area, but I grew up pretty humble beginnings. Small little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom down in South Bay. My mom was a school teacher and a librarian. My dad worked for the county, just recently retired. So shout out to Pops for putting in 40 plus years in the profession. think he worked longer. He worked well past retirement age, just because that's who he was. So that's who he is. So I mean, I have a lot of great role models in my life. I have a younger sister. Education's a real big deal that my mom instilled in us from a real early beginning, that it was go to college or bust. You're going to do something with your life. Not sure what you're going to do with it, but you're going to do something. And so you just kind of keep forging ahead. So I was really lucky, really lucky to have two parents in the house, two parents that were very hard workers. My dad immigrated to the country when he was a kid, a teenager, to San Francisco, where he met my mother. And that's where they first met. And so he was a Vietnam vet, immigrated here from Nicaragua, from Central California, or Central America to Northern California. And like a lot of my family, on my dad's side of the family, I'm first generation born in the States. On my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family is from Mexico. She's been here. She was born and raised here, though. And so in close to the Mission District and Daly City is where my dad's side of the family's from. My mom's a little bit more centrally located in the city. And then they moved on down to San Diego after some stops in Central California and LA area around Fullerton, because she was going to school and chasing the education dream. And that's how they ended up in San Diego. She was finishing up her master's at San Diego State. And so that's how we plopped on down in San Diego. That's where I came in.
No, what a story. Nicaragua, huh? I always forget that you're from down there. But right when you mentioned it, I remember. Shout out to Pops, shout out to your moms, from auntie, uncle. Good to have your son on here and just really feature his success, his life fulfillment, and his approach to that. So welcome everybody that has just tuned in. If you're just tuning in, you're on the Coach V Show, where iron sharpens iron. Together we rise. We have the head coach of Southeastern University down from Lakeland, Florida. So my man left the West Coast and he's down there where it's nice, hot, and humid, really close to Disney World. And Coach, what are the 619 life lessons that you learned? Maybe share with us your elementary school, junior high, your high school, and what the life lessons of that San Diego life. What is that for you?
I think growing up in Southern California, we're really blessed with having a real diverse community, whether you're down in San Diego or LA, and where I just moved to Florida from most recently. And it's, when you first get into school, you don't know any different. The multiculturalism that's in our schools, in our classrooms.
Until you leave, right?
Yeah, until you leave and you go other places, and you think when you grow up, and you're around a bunch of people that look like you, and growing up next to the border, a lot of brown kids that look like me, and and you go, okay, well, now this is the way it's going to be everywhere. And then you start forging off to the rest of the country, you realize it doesn't look like you so much. And so, but I think, grow up in the household that we did, and my mom really cultured us a lot. She had a lot to do with making sure that we had our eyes wide open to lots of different environments and different things. And I just finished taking my kids to go watch West Side Story, the remake, and it actually brought me back. It brought me back to some memories of my mom taking us to plays as a kid, and things that were just things that would maybe be outside of our scope of understanding as little kids, but they were real powerful at the time. You don't know about that till later on in your life, and so that was kind of neat for me to share with my kids just recently, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, we got some food here in SoCal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think pho is something that just got introduced maybe 5-6 years ago. Here in South Sac, it's been around forever because of the diversity of the Hmong, Vietnamese. I mean, there's so many diverse Asian cultures right here in the 916. But the 619 is very, very unique. I mean, every place is its own world. I mean, you fly to Orlando, Florida versus New Orleans, right? Or DC, right? I mean, it's totally different. And some of the places you've been to, like Tennessee, you and I both have been in the 208 before together. And then there's, is it the 530 or 503? I always get that in Oregon, in Davis, right? Is that the 530?
530. I think it's 530.
530, right? And then like Portland is like the 503. Some quality time
there. We should know.
Yeah. We spent, but it's been a minute. It has been a minute. But like what is it called? The Lamp something district
The gas lamp,
The
gas lamp.
gas
Worked
lamp
down.
district,
I
because
got,
I've been
it
down
got
there
me through
for
grad school.
yeah, right. I mean, and the weather in Diego is just phenomenal, right? It's just awesome weather, beautiful people from all over the place. What else would you like to share that's like really memorable about your San Diego upbringing?
I would just say the people that I met and growing up, you know what, and the people that I was raised around. So I grew up around obviously a lot of people from Central and Latin America, and then had, you know, the great opportunity to grow up around kids, you know, from African American community, and then all the Polynesian kids that I grew up with. And I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
you know, it was, and that's where you and I kind of come in a little bit, because I grew up, you know, my surrogate brothers were all the Napoleon family. And so,
Mm,
you know, I got to give a shout out to Filippo Napoleon and the Napoleon crew, because
yeah, shout
you know,
out.
they raised me like another son in that household. You know, and so I didn't even know the difference between sometimes my family and his family, because we were just so tight. And so a lot of that and my success and the direction that I took my life has a lot to do with him, especially when it comes to football and coaching and mentoring, because I was definitely mentored by those older brothers, and I consider them family. The Napoleon crew was absolutely amazing to me. So that's one of the things I take away the most in my upbringing back in San Diego, and those ties are still real tight. I can't go home. I can't go back to Southern California without
Right, showing
seeing my
up.
guys. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What about elementary school, junior high, high school? Where did you go? Where did you attend?
You know, because school was a real priority for my mom, and making sure that I was steered in the right direction. You know, I used to jump on a bus, a school bus, two buses to school every day and two buses home every day to ship me across the city, just to make sure I had an opportunity to go to a good school, magnet school.
Mm,
And that was tough on me as a little kid. I remember still growing up, and I was in second grade, and she stuck a sign. It was the most embarrassing thing ever. She stuck a sign. This is before cell phones and pagers and all those other things
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep track of your kids. And she stuck me on a bus at the bus stop and wrapped a sign around my head and said, "If lost," and it had her contact information and her phone number. And it was a big old sign, you know, like almost as I'm hanging out, you know, at the edge of a freeway. And but it was like, "If lost, you know, please find him and contact his parents." And she put me on a bus and said, "See ya." And ever since that day, I've been riding the bus and using a bike and my legs to get to wherever I needed to go. I didn't have my first automobile till after I graduated at Davis.
Right.
You know, so I just been hoofing it. I didn't know any different. That was just the way to roll.
Right. So junior started fourth grade at 9 years old. So you've been riding a bus solo since like 6, 7 years old.
Since I was 7, since I was in second grade,
Yep.
and just been, whether it was the school bus or the city bus or the trolley or whatever it was. I mean, that's the way we got around. And so I just learned how to make it. I just really did. I just don't know it any other way. And so because, you know, mom, dad had to work. And so when they had to work, it was get myself to school, get myself home, got baseball practice, got to get yourself to baseball practice, got football practice, got to get yourself to football practice. You know, and until they got home, we were riding solo. And so there's a lot of survival skills that go in, especially when you're trying to navigate being in a town and a city in an area in Southern California. Sometimes those streets aren't always nice, we'll put it. And so you've got to make sure that you can get from one place to the other, stay out of trouble, and get away from trouble sometimes.
Yep. So what magnet school was that? And then where did you attend
You know,
junior
it
high
doesn't
and high
even,
school?
you know, it doesn't even actually exist anymore. It was Southwestern, or it was right at the base of Southwestern College.
Okay.
Back when there was only cow pastures and patties out there, and it was called Southwestern Satellite School. And
Okay.
it was grades 1 through 6. It had 92 students in it. So it was kind of an
Wow.
experimental school. Yep. And it was in the Chula Vista Elementary School District. Went there 2nd through 6th grade. Finished
And
there
then
and
junior high?
went to Hilltop. It was a Castle Park in Chula Vista kid. But again, got into a magnet program at Hilltop Junior High before there was middle schools, and went 7th through 9th grade there. And then my parents really my mom being the catalyst. Not that my dad didn't care. My dad, again, being an immigrant to the country, like, you know, like your dad, knowing full well,
Yep.
and like yourself, hey, wherever, as long as there's a school, he can go. My
Right, right,
mom's like,
right,
no, they're
right. Real
different.
talk, real talk.
Right. And my mom knew that they were built different. She was in education. She was in the school district herself. And she said, nah, not so fast. And so she got me in another magnet program at Hilltop Junior High. And then that fed into Hilltop High School. And I had a brief stop at a private school called University of San Diego High School, my sophomore year, my 10th grade year in high school. It was one of those opportunities that I think my parents took to try to get me and steer me in the right direction. I think I was not making some great decisions, hanging out with some clowns, and I needed to be probably put back. Not probably, I definitely needed to be put back in the right direction, both academically and socially, and it did it. It really got me screwed on straight. So then I moved back and went back to Hilltop High School and finished off my junior and senior year there. Graduated there, and then was able to piece the rest of my academic career together enough to get into UC Davis, and that's where I spent the next 5 years.
And talk about that transition, Coach. Talk about you playing at Uni High, at Hilltop High, and then getting into, and how did you end up at UC Davis?
That's a cool story. When you talk about influencers in my life, so obviously Philip Napoleon was huge. We call him Lipo, and he was huge with me, taking me under his wing from an athletic and a social mentoring standpoint at a really early age, 13, 14. And then, but then I had a teacher, an English teacher by the name of Grace Coe, when I went back to Hilltop High School. She was my English teacher. My grades didn't demand me to be in honors classes or AP classes. I was just, an average Joe student. And if you looked at my GPA, it was like a 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 kid, and wasn't maximizing myself. But my mom, she was relentless. And so she wanted me in an honors AP class, and she just didn't give up until I got put in that class with this teacher. And this teacher was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And so I remember our senior year, we were in AP English. And again, you have to remember, I didn't have the GPA to be in these classes, but I was in this one AP English class. And out of our 2 AP classes, and maybe 3, I think every single individual, we were 100% were going to college. And I think outside of all those, maybe only 2 of us ended up at community college. Everybody else ended up in 4-year institutions. And she just revolved all her teaching around going to college, access to resources, access to information. And that's, I think, where the transition to getting into UC Davis really got my heart going in that direction and filled me with a purpose of, you know what, I would really love to do this for other kids like me, kids that didn't, you have parents that are good, and they're pushing you in the right direction, but there's something missing still. There's that access to information and the belief that you can actually do it. And that teacher, for all of us at that time in our high school career, she was just relentless. So my mom was relentless on me. She was relentless on all of us about saying, you guys can do it, and let me give you the tools necessary to get there. And it was awesome. We took campus and college visits as classes together. I mean, we did everything. We prepped for tests together, exams, reading books. I mean, you name it. And I might not have been a great math student or a science student or anything else, but it really motivated us to be better in everything else that we did, because it gave us hope that we could get there. And lo and behold, we did. Now, I didn't have the grades to get to UC Davis. I was a 2.7 kid when I graduated high school, but football helped out a lot. Football was a great mechanism, and we had something called affirmative action at the time. And people that look like you and I, we got a shot. The kids nowadays don't have that opportunity, and that's the reason why I think mentoring and academic support and resources and access to information are even more important today than they ever have been, because we had one small little thing called football and another thing called affirmative action that got our foot in the door. Now, once we got the foot in the door, we actually had to act and do something with it. And that's when I got it to UC Davis. I was part of that 2% of affirmative action students that got in the door. I got myself in my freshman year in summer, and I was actually in a program called Summer Step, that summer transitional education program at UC Davis, through EAOP and the TRIO program. And out of almost a few hundred students, I remember it was well over 200 students that got into the program. There was about 85 of us that actually finished and graduated. Right. And it just showed that if you given an opportunity, you can do it. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody's built for that action in the classroom. But I'll tell you what, that my college GPA was right about, was a lot better at the beginning of my college career than it ever was in high school. And then my graduate degree, my GPA was a lot better than it was as an undergrad. So as long as you're scaling upward, you're trending upward, as they call it, right, in the stocks, then you've got a chance. And as long as you have access to information and resources, which not a lot of us have in the communities we come from. And so that was where my heart was at that time. I wanted to be a teacher, wanted to go into education, I wanted to affect policy, I wanted to be a principal, I wanted to be a superintendent, I wanted to do some crazy stuff for kids back in our community. And that's how this whole thing got started in education.
Right on. And then so we had, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
We had a brief stint together because I was just coming in as a 23-year-old sophomore and you were a senior. And I remember just going, one, I was overwhelmed by just how much stuff you had to know just to function at practice, let alone my undisciplined junior college ass, just coming to Davis. But like you were the first dude. You were a guy named Trevor Leeds and a Will linebacker that was the starter there at the time. I mean, you guys were helping everybody line up, make calls. If it's a 3x1 or the personnel, I mean, it just was like one call, and then we made the call according to what the set was, personnel and all that.
Right.
And that was a real challenge for me. But I remember my first notions of seeing you is just like, damn, this cat's smart. And you and Trevor were just really sharp. And there was a lot of cats that were sharp. Yeah. But that's my first notion of you when I first met you. And then you went off and graduated, and I stayed around there for another, 3 years, graduating at 26. So, but for you,
hey, but you graduated. That's
like?
That's the ultimate goal. You graduated, right?
Yeah,
that's
I did finish. My knucklehead ass did finish. But for you, what was the Davis experience? What are the takeaways that I think all of us? I mean, that place changed my life for the better. Absolutely. And put me in a trajectory that I wouldn't be here right now where I am. I met Martha up here, all that stuff. So what about for you, Coach? What were the life lessons and the takeaways from your Davis experience?
There's a lot of humility that was instilled in me there. You brought up some names there now. You're talking about the Trevor Leeds, the Jeremy Vesey's of the world that was before your time. The Ejiro Everos, the guys that were ballers. I wasn't a baller. I was just, and I appreciate your kind words, but I was Joe Average athlete. And that's probably the reason why you remembered me having to know everything, is because I wasn't really as good on the field with my feet as I was with my brain. And so I had to know that kind of stuff just to even step foot on the practice field, let alone ever try to play in a game. But we just had some really genuinely smart football players. And I just remember that it was such a process to play there. It's unheard of nowadays. What we were able to do there, and what the coaching staff was actually able to do was redshirt everybody when we first got there. Yeah, I think you can count on one hand in 5 years that I was there, because I redshirted as a freshman. We redshirted everybody in the program. Maybe a transfer here or there didn't, but the majority of guys did, and it was a long process to ever actually get out on the playing field. Yeah. And so, like you remember what that was like, and I think for me that it really humbled me. I remember wanting to quit football going into my redshirt sophomore year. I'm walking off the practice field because I'm not playing as much as I thought I deserved, or what I thought I earned. And Jeremy Vesey stopped me in the parking lot and convinced me to not quit. And so shout out to Jeremy Vesey. I haven't talked to that guy in decades, but I've got to thank him.
So I know that name, Cesar. But Coach, what remind me what Jeremy played, because he's a legend. I've never met him.
Yeah, he played safety. He played strong safety, and he was the book, everybody used to call him. And he knew everything, and he was this tall, physical player. And I don't know how any of us would be today in any of what we used to do, but I know back then he was a baller. And so we played with those guys were awesome. I look at those memories being on a team with so much team success. And I think that's probably the thing that I take away the most, is that the individual, and Coach Bronson said that to me on my way out, that, I probably didn't experience as much individual success as I would have wanted, or that I thought I maybe even deserved when I was a selfish little, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. And I was, but the idea isn't behind your individual success when you play such a great team sport like football. It's about the team first. And how can you contribute to the overall success of an organization? And that's what I really take with me today, and both the coaching world, but also my personal life, and the humility in what's your role. And I think once you can be ecstatic and realistic with the role that you have, then I think that's when your potential starts to be seen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that place changed my life, man. I mean, you mentioned Ejiro Evero. We were just talking on the phone prior to getting on here. Nathaniel Hackett, who, I mean, these guys are at, NFL levels coordinating.
Right.
And you guys were all just real awesome dudes. And that's the thing that got me about Davis, because it was intriguing, because we played, I think it was like Texas A&M Commerce, my first game as a starter, my second year there. Like you said, I had the red shirt, I had to sit, and then I had to battle like three cats and a Justin Patterson, who was from Modern Day, who in his first play when he came in for me, took a pick six to the house. I mean, it was just like we had guys that knew what the hell they were doing. They didn't make junior college mistakes. But I remember, Coach, I think we were playing like Texas A&M Commerce or somebody at home, and it was my first game. And I just looked at them and I looked at us like we didn't pass the eye test, right?
No way.
At Davis. I mean, even against Division II schools. These are like other Division II, but they were scholarship schools. And I'm like, damn, these cats are big. And we lit their ass up. I mean, it wasn't even close. It was like 50-something to 6 or something.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, and I've always been on championship teams since high school. But not on that level of organization. And like you said, guys buying into their role. Justin was also, there was two Justins that we all played Will linebacker that year. And the cat busted his butt just to travel and be on punt and kick, and was just cool with it. And it wasn't like the junior college thing where like, I'm the starter. We were just like all cool with each other. Explain that culture and what values that you took from the Davis culture to what you do today, Coach.
Well, it's always team first when you talk about Aggie pride. And you really, I mean, you have to be it. And so whatever organization you're in now in your life, and you transition from one to the other, you just have to be all in, speaking the same language, going the same direction. Everybody, you hear catchy phrases of, rowing the boat and everybody's got an oar, and just, that's what it was for us back in the day before we had any really catchy phrases. And and you had to get over yourself and just be happy with being on a scout team, or be happy with holding water, or happy cheering on your teammates, or like you said, you had some ballers in the middle of all of that at every single position, and you couldn't take a rep off. And I think there's a lot of guys out there that people in mainstream just have never heard of, but some big time guys that were influencers to me, and I really enjoyed playing with them, and they were mentors to me at the time. Somebody like a Josh Farrow or a Joe Caviglia, Buff Dan, Dan Peterson, Nate Nelson. I mean, you got some guys that were some real dudes on defense.
Yeah.
But you had, Jermaine Rucker, and you had, you had Wes Terrell and Kevin Daft, all the way down to JT O'Sullivan and those guys. And they were real dudes. But then you got a bunch of guys that nobody has ever heard of before, because they didn't play very much. Guys like me, and if I didn't coach, nobody didn't even know who I was either, because I didn't play too much. But I took it with me over the years. Now that I just do this for a profession, I took all those lessons about the hard ones, the ones that would kind of keep you up, wake up at night, going where you can't sleep, going, man, I really want to play more. I really want a bigger role. I want more of this and I want more of that. And you forget sometimes that, God has a different purpose for you. and maybe you weren't built to run a 4-4 and or catch a football and or slam dunk or whatnot, but there's a role for you somewhere, and you've got to understand what that role is and do it to your best ability. Because if you don't even take your role and do that to the best of your ability, then what's your purpose? And you haven't figured out your purpose yet then. And then you're just flailing in the wind. And so that's where for us, I really take that a lot. And I watch guys that really took those roles seriously. And I envy them. And I probably didn't make the most of that, but I think that turned into a great life lesson for me, especially in my coaching career, now that I share with kids nowadays about, embracing their role, doing the most with the role and their God-given ability, making the most out of it. And then God, willing that you have some unbelievable raw talent, now hopefully you can take that and take that to the next level as well.
And what about that, Coach? Like, so you left Davis, 22 years that you've been coaching. Walk us through that timeline.
Well, I graduated at Davis and I wanted to get into teaching. And so I went back to Southern California and started teaching. And one of my old high school buddies convinced me to help out at our alma mater at our old high school. And it turned into a lot more of a bigger role than I ever thought it would be. I thought I was just going to coach JV linebackers and hang out and have a good time with my buddies in my spare time of teaching and substitute teaching and working on my teacher credential. And it turned into a stinking full-time second job where I was coaching the JV linebackers, I was coaching the varsity linebackers, and then I was doing some special teams. And next thing I knew, I kind of cut the bug, and I hit up our old DC, Lou Bronson, at the end of that season, and I said, I think I want to try college. And he said, yeah. Him and Coach Big said, come on over and you can volunteer for free like everybody else does.
Yeah.
What you want to do.
Congratulations. Come volunteer for free.
Come on and volunteer for free. Come on, let's go. And I said, cool. So I was about to do it. And then the way God works it, I was at home and it was about to leave. I was about a month out of going back to Davis to volunteer. And another friend of mine came home. He was up in the Midwest. He was in Indiana. He had just taken a job out there. He had GA'd at another school. He was a few years older than me, George Munoz, who spent the last couple of years in Louisiana. He was at, with the Raging Cajuns for a while, and then he was at LSU. And he was another influential person. He gave me my first college opportunity. He called me up and said, hey, we have this full-time, part pay. So it's a full-time commitment with part-time pay at a Division III school out in Indiana, Anderson University. And he goes, hey, would you be interested? And I said, sure, let's talk. And I had never left California before. I was true blue in California, Southern California, Northern California, never lived outside the state. And he said, give it a shot. So I went out there and for about 400 and change, maybe $435 a month before taxes, I went out there and coached the DBs at a D3 school. And then I really caught the bug. That was when the coaching bug really hit. I was teaching, I was doing special ed at the time. And then I was actually segueing to my single subject teaching credential to teach social studies and English at middle school and high school at the time. But I caught the coaching bug. And so that year at that Division III school, we took over a program that was just a year or two removed from being 0-10, and we won the conference. And I was like, man, I got this coaching deal. This thing's easy. I mean, the playing thing was hard. Getting on the field at Davis was hard. Like I said, I was Joe Average at Davis as an athlete. But this coaching deal, it lent itself to me really fast, and I caught on. And I got the bug, and I said, well, I'm halfway done with my teaching credential, my master's. Let me head back to San Diego and finish that thing up, because I heard that, in order to get a full-time gig and get really paid to coach, you got to have your master's. And again, nobody coaches us in this profession. We went to D2 non-scholarship at UC Davis, and there were no GAs, so I didn't even know what a GA looked like. And everybody's talking about GAs. I'm like, GAs, I'm going to go get my master's and go get my teaching credential. I'll pay for it myself. And that's when I started coaching JUCO ball down in San Diego at Southwestern College, where Junior Menards gave me an opportunity, and Walt Justice, who's now retired from coaching, but Junior's still coaching at Southwestern College to this day. He's an unbelievable DC, and he took a skinny little DB coach and turned me into the defensive line coach that I've been for over half my college coaching career now. And I owe a lot to him. I couldn't even, I got an interview and he told me get in a 3-point stance. And I lined up with the wrong hand down with the wrong foot up. And he said, you're hired. he said, you're hired. And I knew there was something wrong because years later, he explained why he hired me. And I said, why did you hire me? That had got to be the worst interview ever of a potential D-line coach. And he said, it was because you knew absolutely nothing and I could teach you everything. And so I go back.
And this is Southwestern?
Southwestern College.
Yep.
And that's actually, when you go back and answer the question about the Davis deal, why that was important and how that framed and formulated me for my future, was that it humbled me to the point where I could walk into an interview, knew that I knew nothing about what I was doing, but walking confident that I was willing to learn. And that's why Junior said he hired me. He goes, you know, you were coachable. You said you'd do anything. You said you were willing to learn. And you were a clean blank slate. And I knew I could teach you. And I said, okay, well, great, let's do this. And so that's where kind of my career started to kind of take off. It was a great experience at Southwestern College.
And then, so you went from Southwestern to where next? You ended up in Colorado.
I ended up in Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And again, a guy like me who doesn't have many connections. We had the Davis connections, but again, we didn't GA at Power 5 schools, and the pedigree, everybody kind of looked at me like I was better off coaching baseball or soccer. I was in the wrong profession. I was the wrong type of minority. I was told over and over and over again. I wasn't part of the good old boy system, and I wasn't the right color skin to jump into football. The guys that look like me, you're baseball coaches, you're soccer coaches, and
right.
And that's probably better suited for you. And I was a baseball player all the way through my senior year in high school when I made the decision to be a football player first and foremost. But I took a bad job. We took a bad program. It wasn't a bad job. I didn't know what a bad job was at that time, but took my first full-time job as a linebackers coach at Fort Lewis College. And a good buddy of ours, mutual teammate of ours at Davis, Edwin Garcia, was there the year before I got there and told me, man, this place, careful, this place is rough. It's tough to win at. And I found out when I got there why, but after our second season there, we had the first winning season in 21 years, and I was the defensive coordinator and the assistant head coach there. And it parlayed me to another job at another university, at University of Nebraska Kearney. Took a position there. We'd beaten University of Nebraska Kearney 2 years in a row, and that was a first and a second. The Fort Lewis College had never done that before, but I was a part of a staff, a really, really young staff. That today, when you look at some of those guys that are around and about, they were outstanding coaches. But I had a mentor there, Ed Rifalato, who did an amazing job, and I really learned how to do more with less from Ed Rifalato at Fort Lewis College when he was the head coach than pretty much anybody else in my career. And that's the thing, I know a lot of guys can reference a lot of famous people, and nowadays, my coaching connections in the tree and the network that I have is a lot more broad. And there's some really, really cool names like in that coaching tree that you and I do know from our Davis connections that are in the pros or their Power 5 schools. But I'll tell you what, some of the best coaches that I've ever been around are guys that help me, like a Junior Menards, like an Ed Rifalato, like a Bob Crocker, like guys that they might not be household names, but I'll tell you what, they can coach with the best of anybody out there. They're just, they're just at the levels and the places that they were at, but they had a huge impact on my life and my coaching career. I'll tell you what.
Right. And then where did you go from there? Nebraska Kearney to where?
So I went from Nebraska Kearney to UT Martin.
Yeah.
Coach, you went to UT Martin, my first FCS experience, and then we had some success there. Special teams coordinator there, linebackers coach, and then got a phone call to go back to Fort Lewis College as the head coach. And I think that's where, those are now you're talking about the real formative years. Those are the life-changing years. As halfway through my coaching career, I thought I was really starting to make it. I'd gone high school, Division III, or junior college, Division III, Division II, FCS, and had success at every step. And it was like, okay, whether it was offense, defense, special teams, or whatnot, we were winning as a program. Statistically, we were doing great. And I'm like, okay, I was a nobody, but now I'm starting to become somebody. So you start feeling yourself, right? And I think that's when the life-changing moment really happened for me. So I went back to Fort Lewis College thinking I could bring the magic back there. And I wasn't, and I was really young and I was dumb. I was the youngest head coach in America at any NCAA institution at the time.
How old were you?
I was just turning 30.
Right.
And that's when 30-year-old guys that look like me don't get jobs at any level, let alone being a head college ball coach. And so I just was like, if I don't take this now, I might never get another opportunity again. And so when I talk about, don't act out of fear, that's where this is where the journey really started for me. We talk about my elementary school and the college days at Davis and everything else, but this is where that life transformational experience really changed my life. I went back to Fort Lewis College and we lost. We didn't lose right away. We were good. We were better. We improved the program. They were coming off of like one loss and, 1-win seasons. And we were starting to perform better, but then we lost, and we lost bad. And it was ugly. And I didn't know what a bad job was until I was in the thick of it. And I thought coaching football, drawing up X's and O's and recruiting was the way to just be successful. And I was incomplete. I was an incomplete ball coach. I was incomplete as a husband and as a father. I had 2 young kids at the time, and I just really didn't understand what it was to be a leader of an organization at a championship level. When we were at Davis, it just came so naturally. So then you start trying to replicate excellence, but you're not sure. I wasn't, at least I'll speak for me personally. I didn't really understand the process on how Davis became Davis. We were just all plug and play guys.
Yeah, that's right.
As long as you follow directions and you follow the process and you were about the culture at Davis, we won. And if you don't understand the process on how they got to that point, you miss all these steps. And that's what I did. I just missed a ton of steps in the process. And the arrogance and the the egotistical part of me at that young age was like, man, it's coaching ball, it's drawing plays, it's yelling at players, it's recruiting ballers, and then you win. And I didn't really understand that. And so I think that's where that moment where I stepped away from that job in 2012 and quote unquote as a failure. And it was really a naked moment in my coaching career. And I said, I've got to reevaluate this. And so my wife and I, Jen, and we said, hey, the next move is going to be about family. We need to kind of hit a reset button and refocus what's really the most important part here. We had, like I said, 2 young kids that were still in diapers, and we had to figure it out. So we traveled across the country and revisited all of my buddies and friends across the country that made connections with me throughout the years. And we actually then made it about family first. And so we ended up at Sioux Falls, South Dakota with Jed Stugart, who actually interjected the values of a Christian university and this thing called faith-infused football into my life. And he introduced me to Pastor Keith Loy, who is now just now not only my pastor that from distance, but also a close personal friend and a family member now to me. They introduced him to me on my recruiting visit out there. And when I asked my wife, when we had all these different options in 2013 of where to go, I said, where did you get all the warm and fuzzies from? And where's the place? Don't think about the level and the money and all this other stuff, but where's a place we can call home? And she says, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I said, that place that was 2 degrees in January when we went visited?
Right.
And she said, absolutely. That's the spot that I think us as a family need to be. And so we made it a family decision, because it sure as heck didn't have anything to do with the title, the level, or the money, because it was none of the above. But it was great people. It was still good football, don't get me wrong, but we just didn't make it about football. We made it about everything else. And Jed Stugart and the guys I worked with, Tremaine Jackson, who's now a near and dear friend of mine, somebody that all the way back for your Boise State days, Robert Tucker and Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb's, he's he's up at UW now with Kalen DeBoer. Those Sioux Falls guys were just outstanding human beings. And so that was exactly what we needed at that point in time in our lives as a family. So we kind of hit the reset button on everything at that point.
And then travel down to SoCal?
Right. And this is the way that God has a funny way of winking at you. So I'm sitting there 11 months in at Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Jed brings me on in and say, hey, what are the plans for next year? I say, hey, I really want to be here. They said, I think I think we found great community here. This is great for the family. I think I need to be here for another year. This is more about family than it is football. I appreciate you still giving me a job, and I'm going to do a great job for you. But then APU called, Azusa Pacific University down in LA called, and this is the way it would have it. Jed Stuger was an alum of Azusa Pacific. He said, "Hey, I don't want to lose you, but if you're going to go someplace else, going to my alma mater back at home, going back to my alma mater back at home isn't a bad spot to go." And so went down to APU, checked it out. It was Victor Santa Cruz is a near and dear friend to me now, and that's where I spent the next 6.5 years.
Wow, 6.5.
Longest
it was that long, bro.
Right. 2014 to January of 2020. It was some of the best years of my life, and it really helped transform me into the coach and the person I am now.
And then to go from that guy that was at Fort Lewis at 30 years old to now reevaluating, went to Sioux Falls, ends up back at APU, and then to have an AD at SEU come out and search for you. What did that feel like? Because now we're going for the audience. He's now at APU for 6 years, now ended up where you are now with the Fire. How did that feel like, Coach?
It was humbling again, because you're like, really me? Like it's just me. It's not that kid anymore of like, I'm the next Nick Saban, right? There's none of that anymore. Now it's like, man, I'm just glad that we're all three kids are out of diapers, and are we going to, when's our jujitsu practice with the kids, and tutoring sessions, and shuffling kids to softball practice, and I'm just glad that they're still letting me do football as a profession. I get a paycheck for that, and it was about the kids in our program and transforming lives and growing them into young men, and so to have somebody come out and say, hey, we really want you to be the leader of our program at our university, it's humbling. And I go, really, me? Wow, thank you. And so that was probably one of the highlights in my career, to have somebody come on out and be like that, no matter what the level and what the location, where the school is. It's always a nice feeling.
But then, I mean, obviously it'd be too easy if you got somebody to come and cater to your wants and needs and try to recruit you, and then COVID hits in your first season. How was that?
Well, I took the job, obviously, and that was probably the hardest thing. To be honest, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, was to leave Southern California, my family, because my father still lives in San Diego. My mom lives in the Bay Area, and our community, between our church and our jiu-jitsu academy family and APU, it was all right there. Our close friends and family that was our network. That was our community. And so to leave and go over 3,000 miles away and start from scratch, it was really something that God had to push us to, and He really did. And my wife was all on board, and the girls got behind us, and that was cool. It was an opportunity to lead a program, but we talk about a lot. It's really cool to feel like you figured out your purpose and your why, but then after a while, you got to share that with people. You just can't keep that all bottled up. We talk about that at church all the time. It's great to know, your why, and when you feel spiritually led, but you got to eventually branch out and share that with other people. And I felt like this was a perfect opportunity to do that. So, but as the world would have it, the pandemic hit about 8.5 weeks after we got into Lakeland, Florida, and they shut us down on March 13th. Got here the first week of January. They shut us down on March 13th, and then we had to go bye-bye away from reality for a few months, until we started up football again on August 2nd of that year of 2020. And so we hit the ground running. We were still trying to figure out the names of our teammates and our coaches on August 2nd, but we made a little run. It was a little different than living in California. Florida was wide open, and we were going to play football, and we did, and we went 5-1. But it was probably one of the hardest experiences we've ever been through, of how to navigate COVID and all the things that were going in society at the time, and with race relations, and it was and being in a new community and away from family and friends. That was tough, but we leaned on each other a lot as a family, and you fielded a lot of phone calls from me, and but we had some success. We had some success on the field, but that had very little to do with me and more to do with the people that were around me. They worked extremely hard. They did a phenomenal job, and I walked into a good situation here. To make no mistake about it. So that's had a lot to do with our success in 2020.
And then 2020 now connects to this year, a championship year. You earned Coach of the Year for the conference, and then one of your assistants also got the Assistant of the Year.
Correct.
And I've been on some staffs like that, where the head man gets like National Coach of the Year, but then multiple assistants get. I mean, that's really a sign of a culture. You've heard me say this before too, Coach. I mean, teams win and lose games, football games,
right.
basketball games, right? But programs win championships. Coach, when I say that, what do you think of, and what comes top of mind?
I think of the million conversations you and I have had over the years about there's a difference between being a team and being a program. And I think there's no difference between whether you're in the business world or in your personal life, and that it's sustainability, right? And that's what we talk about. We joke about that all the time. Actually, I joke about it probably more than anybody else. I say, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you can evaluate me on how this thing rolls the day after, right?
Yeah, real talk.
Because at the end of the day, in our professions, no matter what profession you choose, as the leader of the organization, I think you're graded on how this thing goes when you're not around. We can micromanage people all day long, and that's what I was probably most guilty about in my first go around of being a head coach, is that just micromanaging people to death. And I think you just got to trust that you can instill vision in people, give directives, and then see how this thing operates. And then can you manufacture change when change is needed, and have it be sustainable over a long period of time. Now, this isn't a long period of time. We've only been here for 2 years, but what I will say is that we've had a lot of turnover, and we lost my offensive coordinator probably a month before the season, our defensive coordinator like 2 weeks before we started, lost a D-line coach, a DB coach, lost players. And what I said was, more than anything, when we were looking to find replacements for both players and coaches so close to the season starting, was that we needed to find the right people. There was a million people that were trying to hit us up about, your same thing that I felt guilty of back when we were at Fort Lewis the first time, all the X's and O's stuff. It wasn't about the X's and O's, it was about the Jimmies and Joes and your relationship that you can build with people. And unless I felt that there was going to be a good fit and continuity amongst the staff first, and then the staff moving to the players, we were just going to be, sticking fingers in a dam, people talk about sticking your fingers, sticking gum in a dam. That was all going to be temporary fixes. And I really wanted this to be more of a long-term solution. And so I took my time and hopefully found the right people. What we felt were the right people for the positions. And it took a little while for everybody to kind of get going and get the continuity together, because it was so last second. But once we got rolling, we really, really started playing really well together. But it really started with the staff. It really started with the continuity amongst the coaches. And that, if there's something I'm really proud of what we did this year, somebody like Adam Waugh, our defensive coordinator, I mean, he put a defensive playbook together in 13 days on pencil and paper, the old school way. There was no fancy video and no PowerPoints and Visio slides or anything like that. And it just showed that you could still do something the old fashioned way if you find the right people. And that's what we found this year.
In that, Coach, how do people get a hold of you? What are your handles on Instagram? How do we follow the program? And what does the world and the country need to know about SEU football, the FIRE program, your approach? What's the philosophy, and what are you guys working on?
Well, it's interesting you talk about philosophy, because I use core values. And I think that's something maybe we've transformed our verbiage a lot over the years, is saying, what do you really believe in, right? Philosophy is a very catchy phrase. And it's like, no, who are you on the inside? And for one, let me go backwards. You talked about my Twitter handles and Instagram and all that. I actually got rid of all of that stuff recently over the last year. And I'll tell you this, it was because there was just so much negativity out there. And I kept preaching about being positive. And I just couldn't see all the fruit of social media, what everybody was speaking about. I went back and said, how much am I actually getting positive out of this from a recruiting standpoint or a connection standpoint, networking? And I was like, you know what, let me get rid of this for a month. And when I got it on an average, I got about 3 hours worth of my day back. And those are hours at work. Those are more productive hours at work. Those are hours that I get to steal back with my kids and my wife and my family. And I haven't gotten back, and I haven't felt any pain whatsoever from not being involved in that sphere of my life that I was involved in heavily before. And everybody says you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to do it. And maybe in some jobs you do have to do it. But what I truly believe is if you can create a process to your day-to-day, you can find other solutions around not having social media. So that's just one thing for me personally. But as far as my core values, it's just treat people right, and make sure that you involve what we call our 4 core here, which is faith, academics, social, and athletic life. And as far as SU and who, what, and what we're about, so, I stole this from Victor Santa Cruz at APU. Building champions while pursuing championships. And what does that mean? Well, you're creating this life transformational experience to creating lifelong champions. Everybody wants to be a champion. Everybody says they want to be a champion, but will you act, behave? Will you walk in that way, walk towards that direction? Will you pick yourself up off the floor every day to be that life champion? Because being a champion is a day-to-day process. It's not just showing up on Saturdays. It's not just showing up in the office when you have a presentation to do. It's not just showing up for payday to get paid. I mean, there's so much that goes into the day-to-day. Being a champion every day. Did you win today? Did you do the things that you needed to do to be successful today? When opportunity met your preparation, were you ready for that? And that equaled success. That's something that you and I have spoken about for years. When you start defining, well, what does success look like? Well, shoot, that's different. That's different for everybody. For some people, it's a paycheck. For some people, it's a win on a Saturday or a Sunday. For other people, it's time with their family. Success is all gauged and on such a different stratosphere for everybody. So try to compare yourself to somebody else's success to yours is, I stopped doing that a long time ago. And that's why I gave up the social media, because it's like, man, I'm not here to impress a bunch of strangers. Who cares? I don't care how many people liked my stuff. I'm here to actually impress the people that matter the most in my life, which is my family. God and my family. That's it. And so everybody else can kick rocks if they don't like how I'm doing stuff. I like it if they liked what I was doing. But at the end of the day, I got to continue to ask myself, what's the most important thing and who are the most important people?
That's awesome, Coach. Thank you for sharing that. And what are your shout outs, Coach? And who I've got to shout out
outside of my family, outside of my parents, who you already gave some great shout outs to. My wife, Jen, she's absolutely amazing at what she does. And she's actually the brains behind all of this stuff on the balance, because she's able to now balance, a full-time job and our kids. And so there's some seasons of life where I am an absolute no help. And that's where I envy how you do things, because you balance, your 2 beautiful kids and with the profession that you and the business that you run. And so my wife just holds it all together. She's the rock. And our 3 beautiful kids, Elena, Jocelyn, and Shiloh, they roll with it, and they love game day, but they really don't care whether we win or lose. My 5-year-old will run up and give me a big bear hug after a loss or after a win, and she has no desire to even ask whether we won or lost. Or my 12-year-old Elena, that after a loss, she'll come up and say, hey, remember, you don't lose, you learn. And that's, these are coaches' kids. They grew up in the profession now. Elena had a bassinet in my office when she was first born in Colorado. She grew up in the weight room, on the football field, in my office. She knows more football than most of my players do. And she knows how to evaluate talent. And taking Jocelyn, my middle one, on the road. When we go recruiting on Friday nights, it's a recruiting visit / date night when I take them to the IE, and we go visiting high schools and watching players. And she goes, all right, who do you want me to watch today? And I give her a jersey number of a kid, and she'll watch him for a couple of series and tell me what, she gives the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and she'll be like, he doesn't run hard enough. I know you, he doesn't run hard enough, or he looks lazy, or, oh, wow, he's really, really good. And so, my kids and my wife, I mean, they're the champions in all of this thing, as you know.
Awesome. Awesome. In that, welcome everybody for tuning into the Coach V Show. If you just tuned in, we are on with the SEU Fire in Lakeland, Florida. Southeastern University head ball coach, the ball coach. There's another ball coach now in Florida, my man, Cesar Rivas. And we are just now to the segment where we're going to go over the Coach V hot seat. We got a few minutes here where I'm just going to say a word or a phrase, and the head ball coach for SEU is going to give me his notions on that. Coach, I teach knowledge plus accountability equals empowerment. Now, 2 questions I have for you. That when the knowledge and the accountability is off in terms of the training, the expectations and the standards and what's being told to players and staff, what's expected, you reach entitlement. And the heart of that whole equation for me is if you're not accountable, you can never be empowered. So we're talking accountability, empowerment, achievement, success, champions, and also the word that is cancer to all great cultures of excellence, which is entitlement. Your thoughts on those, Coach?
Well, I think the word realism comes to mind. We talk in the recruiting process, people always want to know, can you give me a nugget for recruiting? I give them the 3 B's, be educated, be invested, and be realistic. And I think that the entitlement part comes in when you're missing one of those characteristics because you're ill-informed about the process, you're ill-informed about, what your own capabilities are, or you're being unrealistic with the amount of time, energy, and effort you put into something with what you're getting out of it. So people, I think nowadays, they want to be paid for something with minimal output. And that's, who doesn't? I mean, I want to be able to sit around on the couch, watch TV, chill and make $1 million, no doubt. But the realism of that is that I can't. I'm educated, invested in my life, and I'm realistic enough to know that I can't sit on the couch and make $1 million, watch TV. It just doesn't happen, right? So you got to be able to put work in. And I think nowadays, I think that there's a disconnect between you talked about accountability, but really is we want things that are outside our scope of expertise. And it doesn't mean that the scope is going to be out of our reach forever. It just means that right now it is. And so I got to go work and make myself an expert at something. So I can get paid for that, or I can reap the benefits of that, or so the output is higher than what I'm currently getting or putting out for right now. And I think that's something so realism, being realistic, being invested, and being educated are something that comes to mind when you speak to what you did.
Hey, I love that. In that, as I'm building my team for the first time and hiring and training teams all over the world, I often ask the people that jump on my Zoom calls that want to be a part of my team, and they're pretty adamant. They're like, oh, I'm in, I want to be in. And I go over the standards and expectations, but with this notion of so many people want to join something because of the outcome. I'm searching for people that want to be part of the process. When I say that, Coach, what do you think about?
Well, I think it's in somebody's DNA to truly find something they're passionate about. Because I think people have it in them to be hard workers at something. But I think the problem innately is that they haven't found what that something is yet, which is their purpose, their why, right? And that's what we just continue to try to push. You got to find your why. You've got to find your purpose, no matter what it is, because that will intrinsically make you a harder worker. And until you find that, now you're doing something else for somebody else's why, and now you're not as motivated as you could be. And so that for me is you got to find that first. If you don't find that first, it's not going to matter. You'll always do the bare minimums because we as human beings, we're lazy, and we learn through. And if you're talking about the male population, us men, we, the women, they're not like this. Females are not like us intrinsically. We learn through pain. We talked about this a lot. So, one of my, Victor Santa Cruz, the old head coach at Azusa Pacific, and my old GA, Spencer Danielson, who's the DC up at Boise now. we used to joke around. That's the only way us as men learn is through pain. We've got to learn through failure. We've got to learn through falling down. We got to skin our knees, bump our elbows, get hit in the head for us to actually learn a valuable lesson. And I think for us, we've got to make sure that, we, as we're going through the process of this whole deal, we've got to find out, what's our why, because we're willing to do it. But we've got to figure out what our why is. If not, the hard work just isn't there. We want, again, I come back to, we want an easier road. Everybody does. No question. But we're willing to work harder for things we're truly passionate about. So you got to go out and find what that passion is.
Man, thank you so much for that, Coach. That's the Coach V hot seat for everybody tuning in. Thank you so much, Coach. We're about to send off everybody, and I want to just thank you on behalf of Island City Media Group and me. I know you're busy running around recruiting, and there's a lot going on in your world down there that you would take some time just to drop off some nuggets, some success frameworks, life lessons, and behavioral models that if we find, or the audience finds that it's value to them, that they deploy that all over what they do. But I would love an opportunity just to give you the final word on your experience here on the show and any final send-off that you may have for the audience, Coach.
I would just say thanks so much, Coach V. Obviously, I value your friendship, and your family's is absolutely amazing. And the platform that you have now to grow people in their relationships and in business and leadership is outstanding. I've taken so many good, great positive things from you over the years, and you just speak life into people. And I think that's something that we don't do enough of. It says in scripture that you can either speak life or death into people with just something as simple as your tongue. And I think we need to do that a lot more often nowadays, to speak life into people, especially in the world today, with everything being so controversial, with between COVID and racism and all the things we're dealing with finances and the economy and politics. And I mean, just go breathe some life into somebody. If you're listening to this, go tell somebody you love them, go give them a hug, go just tell somebody it's okay that we're different, we look different, we think different. You're red, I'm blue. It's okay, and things will move on, but I still love you, I still care about you, I still respect you. And I think that right there is the microcosm for growth right there, is having that understanding with people. And if we can do that, I think we'll be on the right track. But that's it. Go out there in the real world and speak some life into people.
Thank you, Coach. And thank you so much again for coming on the show. And for all of everybody that's watching here on the Coach V Show, where iron sharpens iron, together we rise, powered by Island City and broadcast from Hollywood Radio Studios. Thank you so much for always tuning in. We will be here every Motivation Monday, and myself and Coach Cesar Rivas. This is how we live. This is how we do faith, family, football, finances, and this is what we do. But really, the reason that I would wish that you would consider doing these things or taking these actions, because of what you think, you feel, what you do, how you see things, and how you say things, it is what you do. And it's not just for the sake, for Coach and I, it's not just for the sake of success, but really for the sake of being your best. In doing so, you realize the best of your abilities, and that everything that you dream and work for can be achieved. This is how Coach Rivas and your boy Coach V lives, all about faith and family. Grateful for God's amazing grace. Until next Motivation Monday, thank you again to Coach Cesar Rivas. Shout out to the SEU champs and their Coach of the Year, Coach Cesar Rivas, in Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida. From your boy Coach V and Coach Cesar Rivas. Until next time, one love, mad respect, live it. Peace.